Welcome to Processing Purpose, a business and lifestyle podcast committed to having honest conversations about the stuff in our lives that is often suppressed, ignored, or overlooked. We are two brothers from very different backgrounds, but with one common goal. From entrepreneurship to relationships, from hobbies to house projects, nothing is off limits as we process becoming the best version of ourselves in business and life.
Episode 4?
Episode 4.
Happy New Year, Luke.
It is a new year. 2023, January 2nd.
Does it feel new? I don't know if I feel that new yet, but yeah, it is a new year.
Man, a lot of stuff's new right now.
Yes, it is. We just talked a lot about that.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes. Probably won't go there today because it was a bit heady, but...
Yeah. No. We don't need to necessarily unfold our actual conversation, but... You know, AI, and we were just chatting about AI, and we have different feelings on that, but not just AI. There's a lot changing in the world. Obviously, business itself is being reformatted in a lot of different ways. The reason we brought up AI was because it's that in and of itself is reformatting a lot of businesses, and maybe even kind of societal needs moving forward. I think it's going to change fast, but again, let's talk about change. Let's talk about newness.
Well,
and
we're in
change
an interesting time, right? So, I mean. Sure, technology's changing, but world order, we're going to see change. We're going to see probably a new era of health, whether that's with recurring pandemics or,
Right.
You know, I think that we're certainly going to see economic change here within the U.S.
Well, I mean,
in the next 12 months.
We're still a bit in our infancy. When you think about the internet and technology in general, or modern technology, it's still pretty new.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about the cosmic calendar, I mean, it's really new.
Yeah. Which it really kind of all comes back to what we want to talk about today, which is priorities.
Yep.
Because anytime you deal with change, anytime you start a new year, anytime you really decide to reorient yourself to what's important, it forces you to face priorities.
Right.
What am I giving my time to? What do I want to make the big rocks?
Sure. Do you want to elaborate that on that a little bit?
Sure.
Because I don't think you talked about big rocks last time.
We've like hinted at it like three times.
But
I don't think we've ever talked about it. So there's this story of a professor, okay, at a major university, and he's wanting to teach his class a concept on priorities. And so what he does is he brings out a pitcher. It's a pitcher, a nice, let's call it a carafe, right? Let's call it a gallon pitcher. And he sets it up on his podium, and it's full of rocks. And he goes, "Class, is this pitcher full?" The class looks at the pitcher. It's full from the top to the bottom with rocks. They all go, "Yep, it's full." Reaches underneath the podium, pulls out a jar of gravel, pours the gravel in around all the rocks, and it filters down in, gets all the way down to the bottom. He shakes it a little bit and puts the whole jar of gravel in there. Now points at the carafe and says, "Class, is this now full?" And the class is like, "What? I mean, surely now it's full. Now it's full. Okay, I got it. Now it's full." Pulls out a jar of sand. Starts pouring the sand in. The sand filters all down. He shakes it, filters it all down in, fits the whole jar of sand down in. "Class, is this full?" Well, at this point, the class isn't responding. They're all kind of looking around like, no. I don't know what else you're going to do. Pulls out water. Pours the water in, and it filters all the way down, fills it up, and overflows. Goes, "Class, what's the point of this exercise?" Someone from the back of the room, "There's always room for more." He goes, "No. If you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never fit it all in." And
that paints a perfect picture for priorities. Holy
right?
smokes.
And if you're not choosing what's going to be your big rock or rocks, I mean, how many times have you said to yourself, and I'm not saying you, but our listening audience, me, the royal you, "I want to lose weight. I want to get in the gym. I'm going to be kinder. I want to give back more." Right? Or whatever it is that you're wanting to make a priority. And then life happens. and you don't get to it, life fills up. If you're not intentional with what you put in life, it fills up.
It does. And it's always a counterbalance. I always, it's easy to get excited about something new in your life and run toward it, but you're going to sacrifice other things around you in order for those things to happen. So Luke's right. I mean, if you don't know what your big rocks are, start there.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've got all those figured out. And those change too.
Yeah.
And those big rocks can change month to month depending on what you got going on. And so, I mean, there are what I call anchors in life, and I think those are big rocks that, right, your kids, your wife, your family, the relationships nearest and dearest to you will forever be your big rocks.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to business and the pursuit of growth and success and all that, man, I'm constantly juggling big rocks, it feels like.
Well, and I think an intelligent, integrated person evaluates that stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like if you're still operating with the same priorities that you had a decade ago, you're behind.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's always as things change.
Or maybe you've gone back to, let's say you had a set of priorities that were really near and dear to you and you've gotten away from those. Well,
sure.
But yeah, Luke's right. If you're stagnated, if you're complacent, then yeah, you need to change and shake it up.
Yeah, and as we look ahead, we started this episode talking about all the changes.
Right.
As things change, so too, likely, would and should your priorities.
In more times than not, you cannot control change, right?
It happens.
Yeah. I'd say most of the time you can't. So you have to decide how you're going to behave through it and try to find enjoyment through it.
I think one of the things that I see people say wrong or look wrong, think wrong about priorities is, I wish I had more time, or I just need to get better at managing my time.
Right.
And I don't think there's such a thing as time management. I think that's fake.
But I think there are, like I just talked to Brooke. Brooke's my wife. I just talked to Brooke about this a couple days ago. What I want to do this year that I have not done in the past, and it seems like it's an obvious thing, but haven't, is mark out our vacations for the year now. Instead of letting them happen to us, plan them out, get them on calendar, and start moving toward them. So, I mean, in terms of time management, like just setting, some sort of structure around your family and your life. For me, anyways, I'll speak for myself. It helps reduce some anxiety.
But if you zoom out,
my day to day,
that's not time management.
No,
that's priority management.
Okay.
It's saying, look, time is, you can't manage time. We all have the same amount.
Right.
All you can do is manage what you do during that time. And
Sure.
so we confuse ourselves that or maybe we just use wrong language around it, that we need to get better at time management.
We need behavior management.
We need to get better at making decisions based on what's important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Values.
Yeah. Priorities. What's big? What's new? What's in need of adjustment?
Is what you value always a priority or not the same thing?
I think it probably should be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you value relationships, if you value money, if you value family, if you value spiritual relationship, right? It should be a priority.
What is your value or priority on a new year? Just the start to a new year.
Yeah.
Does it feel good to close the chapter of 2022? Are you proud of that? Does it feel good to open up a new one in 2023? Is it a continuation? Some of you, your fiscal year hasn't even ended, those sorts of things.
Are you asking for me personally?
Yeah.
I feel like this year I'm maybe in a different headspace in a new year than I've been in previous years.
Okay.
I think the last couple of years we just were kind of ready to shake it off, right? With COVID and, Christmases being different and holidays being different. Like a lot of that was very different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think we were just ready to just like, let's leave that behind.
Right.
Historically for me though, I've never really viewed, like, let's just call it, PC pre-COVID, I never really viewed.
Got a new timeline.
It'll be interesting, by the way, to see if that is actually something.
Yeah, might be.
Side note. I've never really viewed the new year as like putting a flag in the ground and making changes, and I've never really done that.
Not a resolution guy.
Not
kind of a
typically.
thing. Yeah.
What I have done is set an intention for the year. Like this year, I want to effort, and I would pick a theme. I want to effort towards authenticity. I want to effort towards vulnerability. I want to effort towards have that be the common thread to things. So I have done that. I'll usually pick one idea, one concept, and like this year, this is what I want to lean into.
Right.
That is something that I've done. But as far as I want to hit the gym 3 times a week, or like having like things that I can check a box, haven't really done that. This year felt a little different though for me. And maybe that's just because not only are things shifting on the macro, but I think for me, things are shifting on the micro, and some of that stuff we can't really get into, but at least not at this time, but maybe somewhere down the line, somewhere in the future. Yeah. But I feel like I'm on the precipice of a redefinition of myself. And it caused me, I spent yesterday actually, not a lot, but I spent like an hour, like just kind of, what do I hope this year brings? Because I haven't really enjoyed, outside of like the annoyance of the inconvenience of life changes because of COVID, but I haven't really enjoyed the process of life. And I don't want to live in that space.
Right.
And so I had to sit down and go, okay.
You mean the like process or the rhythm? Like
yeah.
Just kind of the rhythms of life and how everything has gone over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's felt a little void of meaning. And I don't mean, I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, yeah, I mean the last couple of years have been totally different, right?" And they have been. So I don't want to look at it in a vacuum either. But for me, it's felt like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is it just to make a paycheck? Is it just to, provide extra income to take vacations with my family? Like, what? Why?
And do you feel like, I'm just going to speak for myself, I feel like I'm still a little hung up on the last couple of years. Like I'm still allowing that to kind of affect how I'm moving toward the future. And I'm just going to share one of my favorite definitions of acceptance that I actually learned in a treatment center I was at. I'm 13 years in recovery, but the second treatment center I went to a few. On the wall stated, acceptance is giving up all hope of having a better past.
Ooh.
And it hit me really hard. I walked straight in and I read that and it just absolutely punched me in the gut. But I don't know. I feel like I need to come to terms with that definition about the last 2 years.
Wow.
I need to stop letting it affect my future because it's gone. It can't affect my future.
I feel like we need to just take a moment and just let that sink in, because I get that sense from a lot of people that they're dragging the last 2 years around with them.
Yeah, I am. I still am talking about it. Oh man, it's been tough and all that. It's like, okay, but
I mean, we can't even do an episode here about setting priorities in 2023 without referencing what the last 2 years have been like.
Right. Yeah.
Can you even do it?
Yeah. And again, I'm not. I think all of us are in that camp for the most part. I think there's a few outliers out there that have moved beyond it and are making waves, but I think for the most part we're kind of still swimming in that gray space.
All right, so let me ask you a question. How do you make peace with your past?
In a way, this is a very vague answer, but in a way, having low expectations of your future. Not low expectations, but I should say not having, getting to the point where you're okay with where you've been. I think it's important to not have, I think the reason we get to a place of depression around our past is because we put such fierce expectations on our future, and we are constantly not meeting those expectations. And I think it eventually will just wear you down. And I'm speaking for myself, but it does. Having those expectations on myself. That's why we talked about a little bit before we started this episode that our pursuit of a new year probably looks a little bit different, but maybe not, because it sounds like maybe we're in the same camp to some degree. I just don't set resolutions. I don't. Not to say I don't give great effort every day. Listen, I'm not saying don't set goals and don't have a line to move toward, but just make sure that line is not going to define you or not going to create your identity. And then in terms of just overall letting your past go, I'm going to bring my faith into this. I know I might be skirting a line here. There's a lot of you that may not like that conversation. But
this is us.
But for me, yeah, I'm a Christian. I absolutely love Jesus. And for me, I think I had to meet Jesus at those wounds in order to let them go and let them heal properly. And if it's not Jesus for you, whatever in your world is bigger than you, come to terms with it.
Yeah.
And you need to go to the wounds to let them heal. I think a lot of people put too many Band-Aids on those issues, and they will forever be problems for you. Again, that's a whole nother counseling conversation we can go down another time. But I think
we should at some point, because
Yeah.
I think the mental health conversation is evolving. Speaking of things that are changing, is evolving rapidly.
Right.
And I, for one, and I know you agree with me on this, I'm really excited with the direction and the way people are talking about mental health. I think the pendulum might be swinging a little far, and yet at the same time, I think movement in that direction is good.
Well, and I'm a little annoyed with people discounting or basically saying it's an overused term. Like we need to move on past this. People are using this as a crutch. Okay, yeah, there's going to be a few out there that are going to abuse it. There's hypochondriacs all over the place. But the truth is I'm like Luke, I'm very grateful that people are actually speaking up about it. And even if your mental health is mild compared to others, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your stuff is just as important and needs to be treated and needs attention.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think for me, priority number one is coming to a point of acceptance, not clinging on to the past.
Interesting. And what I heard from that was the expectations of your future. You said, and you corrected yourself, it's not about setting an expectation, a low expectation, meaning that almost has a negative connotation.
Yeah,
right?
That was the wrong.
It's not about that. It's about setting a direction, but being gracious with yourself on the execution of that accomplishment.
And maybe this isn't the best word either, but loose expectations is probably a better term to use. Low expectations is horrible. You need to drive yourself and motivate yourself every single day to get out and do something, or at least remind yourself that you're doing great work. But I think you need loose expectations, knowing that, again, right, we talk about make a plan, but don't hold so tightly to that plan that you're not willing to pivot and shift to adapt, right? Yeah. That's devastating to a lot of businesses, actually, a lot of people.
All right, here's a question for you. A lot of people right now are trying to decide what they're going to say yes to. Okay? Oh, yes, I'm going to go to the gym. Yes, I'm going to eat better. Yes, I'm going to be more present with my kids. What should you be saying no to?
All of the things that prevented you from doing that before, right? Like a lot of people think you can just change a habit. You have to replace a bad habit with something good. You have to. That's my own experience. I think if you just try to eliminate a bad habit, it doesn't work very well. But you have to, as long as you transition that with something really positive in your life, but you have to work on eliminating the bad ones. So for instance, if you want more time with your kids, you probably shouldn't be stopping off at the bar or whatever else. It doesn't need to be the bar, but you don't need to be taking time at the store, for 3 hours poking around when you should be with your kids, right? Like there's avoidance in all sorts. Anyway, I can rabbit trail on that for.
How do you say no to something that is good so that you can say yes to something that's better? Like how do you
gauge it?
Well, maybe you've gauged it, and yet you don't know how to say no to that. You know, it might be an obligation to the PTO. It might be an obligation to a nonprofit. It might be an obligation to good work. But again, coming back to priority management, it's a big rock that you've allowed to get in the way in something that's even bigger. And you have to say no to that. How do you come to terms with being okay, maybe disappointing others?
Yeah.
So that you can say yes to the things that you want to make a better priority.
Clear communication for one, right? If you're going to let anybody down, sitting down and having someone hear your heart, I mean, is first and foremost. I think most people are very understanding and forgiving people. So if you feel like you're going to let anybody down, sit down and let them know where your heart's at, right? You're not maliciously trying to ruin their career or hurt them in any way. But I think it really boils down to boundaries. We talked about that earlier too. It's just forming new boundaries around your life, around yourself, and sticking to it and not prostituting those boundaries. I think that's it. I think if for me, the way I gauge it is if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. I use that often. And just remember this too, right? Like, always two things. One is it's always easier to say no first and yes later than the other way around, right? Really upsets people when you say yes first and then change your mind.
Yep.
Always easy to go, no, can't do that. And then go, maybe I can, and change your mind, right? That's easier to do. Secondly, when it comes to boundaries and it comes to any change in a relationship, just remember that it will hurt. It might hurt them, but it will not harm them. A lot of people think it's going to harm them and ruin everything for them. It won't. It might hurt them in the moment, but it will not harm them. And I was reminded just of something you said as well. And when it comes to relationships, I think that's what it boils down to. When you're going to make a change in your life, most of us don't want to make those changes because of relationships. We don't want to let people down. You know, we don't want to say no to people. But I'm going to remind myself of what you told me, in that we have relationships for a reason, we have some for a season, and we have some for life. And that's okay, right? It's not okay to mistreat people in the process, but it is okay to set new boundaries around your new priorities. Actually, it's vital.
Yeah, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Right? I mean, you got to figure out what you're going to put in. All right, I mean, you and I have talked as we've created this concept around talking into microphones and just having the conversations, right?
Right.
You know, this podcast, technically. I mean, maybe you're watching it on the video, maybe you're listening. I think one of the things that I want to include all of this isn't as much direction or instruction as much as it is certainly that'll be part of it, because I think that we've had a lot of experiences and some success and failures, and we've learned a ton. And even as we talk about priorities, like something in me goes, careful, you don't have this fully figured out yet either. And so I want to be aware of that tug, in that everything that I say, I won't speak for we. I think I can, but I'll speak for myself. Everything that I say over the course of this podcast is subject to change through new learnings and new understandings and new failures that inform and instruct. And I want to keep our talk as real as possible while still giving the audience, the listener, the benefit of maybe where we've walked. Also being like, and this may not be the right path for you too.
I appreciated a public speaker a while ago starting his speech with, I believe it's incredibly presumptuous for me to tell you how to live your life. Started it that way. And I was like, okay, now I'm listening. Right. And then he opened it up as an amazing speech. But point is, yeah, it is presumptuous, right? There's over 8 billion perspectives in the world. Ours are 2 out of those 8 billion. And for me, again, I'll just say again, for me, this is about expression. It's about if what I say helps you in your journey, awesome, right? I'm not, I hopefully never, ever impress on anyone that they should or should not do anything. I mean, that's entirely up to you. But I just hope that some of my mistakes will help you avoid them.
All right, so real talk here for a second then. As we invite people in to help us with our process. What should you, Gavin, what should you be making a priority right now that you're not?
Man, that's a good question. Again, we don't talk about these things really ahead of time.
And I didn't prep you for this, so it wasn't like I was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm going to ask this."
Okay, I'll hopefully I don't get too breathy here. I believe my personality, I've taken the Enneagram. Okay. I know a lot of people have. A lot of people haven't. If you haven't, it's pretty cool. And again, we've talked about personal assessments and how we feel like we take a step forward every time we take them. And I did when I took the Enneagram. I'm a tried and true number 3. And a number 3 constantly knows everybody else's feelings in the room but their own. And so I need to prioritize my own self-awareness this year and create healthy boundaries and structure around my schedule and around my daily rhythm to be my best self. Unfortunately, I'm just being vulnerable here. Unfortunately, for far too long, I've allowed life to happen to me. And not taking control of my own life.
Yeah.
I've been grateful that many successes have come throughout this journey. There's been wins along the way, so I'm not saying it has been all stressful, but I feel the way I've pursued life over the last few years has been I've been subject to it, not creating the life I want.
Again, asking a question that you hadn't prepped for. Do you have some intuition around what kind of construct you need to do or how that can pivot for you, or what I'm asking here is, on some level, our audience is going to be going, even if they haven't verbalized it yet, oh, I need to be working on this.
Sure.
But how do we take that nagging and put it into motion? Like, have you thought about, okay, I feel that this is an alignment for me.
Right.
I want to make that change, which is what you just voiced. What's step 1 for you? And is that step 1 applicable to everybody? Like, is there a first step in this to so I'm going to commit to doing this, at least first, and see what happens?
Two things actually pretty much immediately that I've already done. One is that what I've mentioned earlier, right? Just setting out the calendar, right? Just starting there on a macro level, looking at the year and going, okay, what days are vacation days? What days am I looking forward to? Because again, we talked about it before, I'm a pretty emotional guy, and I think in many ways that benefits me, but in other ways it cripples me, and it can kind of swing me emotionally all over the place.
Biggest strengths are often our biggest weaknesses.
Yeah, they can be, no doubt. But just giving myself the opportunity to know I'm an anticipatory guy. I don't like surprises. I love looking forward to things. There's a buildup for me that I get more and more excited every day. Like if you were to buy me a plane ticket and say, hey, we're taking off today, I'd hate that. If you said, hey, we're leaving in a month, I would love that because I would start building my way up to it. So getting stuff on the calendar now just to say, hey, would that help me look forward to things? So I'm not spinning in these emotional pendulum swings and going, oh my God, when is this ever going to end? It's going to, because I'm going to have something fun coming up. And so I know those things that are coming in my head, but having them down on paper, I think I'm hopeful will help in that way. Secondly, is I literally turned to our director of operations and I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't manage people well. I'm not going to manage you. I need you to manage me.
Mm.
And she will, and she is, and everything's going much better because of that. And so, but what's cool about that is, and she's taken a role with me as more of an executive assistant type of a deal. But it's super helpful because she owns that. She knows how to do that really well. She can manage a person really well. So communicating through my weaknesses from a state of vulnerability has already strengthened, I guess, structure around me.
Yeah.
So small things, right? Nothing major. But again, I think major change happens from incremental, consistent change.
And then anchor yourself in the why.
That I still don't have yet.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. My whys are the obvious ones, but I don't have clarity on anything outside of my kids and family. I don't.
Well, and I think whatever that is that someone's setting their priority as, if you don't have a really big why you're setting that as a priority, you won't do it.
Yeah.
You just won't. So for you, it's I need to do better creating. Well, here's how I hear it, because I'm very much similar. Like, we can get bogged down in the day-to-day, whether you want to call it minutia, grind, process of, could be work, it could be family, whatever it is. It's easy to get kind of bogged down. And yet, if you have something that a light at that end of that tunnel, it allows you to push through that bog, right? And that's kind of what you're alluding to there, right? But having that as your why, like, this is why I'm setting this out, because yes, I want to take a great vacation with my family or my wife or whatever it is, but that's not the why.
Sure. If those are your little, well, but
it could be for somebody. I'm saying it's not necessarily for you though, right?
Can your why, let me ask you this. Can your whys be more short term? I've wondered that only because, we've talked about it a little bit. I have some level of ADHD, but I wonder, big overarching whys almost feel unreachable to me. They almost feel, you know what I mean? Like having a end of year why, or like an end of, I don't know. Do you ever structure your goals or your why around that, or no? You have one giant, big,
absolutely
crazy why.
Absolutely. An example of this might be, for the last about 8 months, I've been pretty consistent in the gym. Now, someone would say the big why there is so that I can live long, so that I can stay healthy.
You just want to look good.
I just want to look good so that my wife looks at me different.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, real talk, I'm being serious.
And
that's what's keeping me in the gym.
Yeah.
Yes, I should be doing it for my heart health. Yes, I should be doing it so that I can, continue to play with my kids in my 70s. And yes, those are factors. But what motivates me to go to the gym this afternoon is the way my wife looks at me tonight.
But wouldn't you say that maybe, but those, like, the fact that you're working to attract your wife, to impress your wife, essentially plays into all the other stuff. Like, if you don't get that right, if you don't get, hey, I want to, on a basic level, be sexually attractive to you, none of the other stuff can really come down the line.
Yeah.
Or it can, but it will just be different.
It wasn't a big enough why to get me in the gym.
Yeah.
This was.
Yeah.
So I think figuring out the reason why you're going to make this a priority is as big of a part of this as it is figuring out what the priority is going to be.
Can I just say something? You saying that and then me just reflecting on what I said previously had me realize that my priority, I'm not kidding, it sounds really vague and weird, but I don't care. My priority this year is to feel good. I haven't felt that good for a while. I want to feel good this year. So my priorities now have to be around physical exercise for sure. Your relationship with your physical body in that regard is probably the most important piece of that. I want to feel good. I'm tired of not feeling good.
I have, I told you guys I took an hour yesterday to write everything down. I created a note in my Evernote that just says big shifts in 2023. Everything on my list, for the most part, has to do with feeling better.
Yeah, I want to feel good. I'm tired of just sacrificing my own feelings for the sake of anything else. I don't think it's fair.
And we should probably be clear too. It's not about pleasure.
No, yeah, not a hedonism type.
It's not
of
I want to just feel good, and
right.
it's like, look, I want to have positive energy, positive thoughts about myself.
Yeah.
That I know I'm doing the right thing for my body. That I know I'm doing the right thing for my health. That I know I'm doing the right thing for my head. That I know I'm doing the right thing for my community.
Right.
That I know whatever it is. When those things are all in alignment, you feel good.
You do feel good. And you don't, honestly, I would argue when you're in that space, you don't even need a why. You don't. You're moving and grooving, baby. You're feeling so good. I've been there before, right? And I want to get back there. That's priority one. So diet and exercise, I think, is first place to start for me. Yeah. And I don't say that flippantly. I don't say like, oh, I want to, my New Year's resolution is to lose 20 pounds and all that. No, my resolution is to feel better, feel good.
And so, that's a piece of the puzzle.
Yes. Right. And if losing 20 pounds gets me there, cool. But that's not my goal. My goal is to feel better every single day.
Yeah. And you may get to a point where that's not as big of a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
You're like, oh, yeah, I should probably do that, but I got to effort over here because this is where I'm getting the return on that energy.
And not saying you're going to not have hard days. You're going to have exhausting hard days, no doubt about it. But I need to start making some incremental choices that will help me feel better. For sure. And I know today, right now, I can start making those different choices for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my stuff for 23 is similar. You know, I've got a big one that I'm navigating through, and my easy answer, is I want to meditate more. That's like the easy one to like. I want to go to the gym more. That's my, I want to spend more time like in, meditative state. I want to improve my growth, give more energy to reading, courses, education, expanding myself.
Sure.
And I want to change the way, and we've talked a little bit about this, is a big can of worms, and I'm not sure we can go into that right now at the 37-minute mark, but I want to change the way I view money.
We talked about that a little bit. You have not talked about that on this podcast yet.
I haven't. And maybe we'll get into it. I mean, I feel like it would take another 20 minutes to really break down, and I don't know if we want this to go an hour, but I don't feel that my relationship with money is healthy. And it creates a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and the truth of the matter is not for good reason.
I wonder if any of you out there relate to what he's saying. I have a feeling you do.
Yeah. It's not because of lack either.
Yeah.
I understand when there's lack and there's stress.
Can I go back and say, does it have to do with a hard-lined expectation that you set for yourself? Again, I wonder if not having loose expectations of our future creates this we're not at this level yet. We're not doing this yet. It's like, whoa, we're creating that, right? We're setting that up for ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's multifaceted. I think for me, it's family of origin.
Sure.
I think for me, it's having too high of expectations on myself. I think for me, it's comparing myself to others.
Let me ask you a question, though. Do you ever get torn by that, having too high expectations for yourself? And I've been talking about this, but I ask because those are also the things that drive us.
Yeah.
So I always get torn between the two of like, don't have high expectations, but also if you don't have them, how the hell are you ever going to get to where you want to go?
Like you said earlier, it's not about not having high expectations of yourself. It's about attaching your identity to the outcome of those expectations.
And the results shouldn't impact your relationships either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Primarily the relationship with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you have to have some level of expectation on what you can go and do and accomplish and become. I think we all somewhere down in there, I may be generalizing this overly, too much, but, I think we all kind of have a sense of like, I'm capable. And that's important. And if you don't, I think you have to find ways to get little wins to prove to yourself that you are. But there's also going to be times where you fail. And you go, yeah, either one, I gave it everything I had. I wasn't enough. I played as hard as I could on that field and we still lost. And there's also going to be times where you're going to be like, I didn't give that one my best.
Yeah.
And I think being able to be honest with yourself, I think people lie to themselves.
A lot. Yeah.
Because it makes them feel good.
What do they call that? What is that? Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. You lie to yourself because being honest about it means that you were the one that could have done something different. And we take a victim stance because it's easy.
Right.
And it puts the responsibility on someone else and we don't have to change.
Right.
And so I think that being able to be honest with yourself and not attach your happiness to the outcome of those expectations. I have attached my happiness to what I achieve. And that is a great path of being unhappy.
But at the same time, just reflecting on our conversation last time, we're also not great at celebrating what we've achieved either. So then when you attach happiness to something you're not celebrating, that's a little different too.
Yeah.
That creates some possible oddities in our behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. Priorities for any of us really are constantly shifting and changing. But if you're not tuning into those on a regular basis either, I'll speak for myself again. It's really easy for me to lose sight of where I'm going, and the important things. How Will You Measure Your Life? Great book, right? Talked very much about that.
Love that book.
Talked very much about your priorities in life are your relationships, and everything else is fairly ancillary to that, is basically what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
And I also love too, I just want to bring this up. I know this is a little bit random. Maybe we'll rabbit trail a bit, but he also talked about prioritizing new experiences. And that was really interesting to me. And I've been about that ever since Luke introduced me to fly fishing. I've kind of been like, what else is out there?
Sure.
Bring it on kind of a thing. But I would agree with him in that new experiences slow everything down, and make you be in the here and now. And I want to prioritize that more this year, because when I'm in the now, when I'm in the here and now, I am definitely feeling better.
Well, I wanted to mention this when you were talking about scheduling vacations, essentially scheduling experiences.
Yeah.
But there's 4 stages. There's 4 stages to an experience.
You've said them, but I forget. Go.
So you have the anticipation.
Yep, which I love.
It's coming. Then you have the planning.
Yep.
Which
our brother-in-law Tyler does really well.
That's the buying, the buying the gear or whatever it is that you need. You search for the right hotel. The process of the prep, the packing.
Right.
Then you have the experience. That's the actual doing.
Yep.
And then you have the reliving of it.
Right.
And that's the reflection of it, and thinking about how great it was, and reminiscing and telling stories and showing pictures. And that's a lot of juice for the squeeze.
Right.
Of scheduling experiences. Yes, I think there's value in being spontaneous and what's open tonight and making the decision and going. But you get so much value out of scheduling a trip to go fish in Patagonia, where you are thinking about it and then prepping and then experiencing it and then reflecting. It's
a full spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his point is start scheduling out an experience today. And we know that may feel presumptuous. We just said that, but that one I'm pretty confident in, that all of us should be should be scheduling out experiences for ourselves. And it doesn't need to be our experiences. It doesn't need to be what we like to do. It needs to be what you like to do. But you need to get them scheduled out because, again, like he's saying, you get a full spectrum of value forever. From today, if you schedule that today, for the rest of your life, because you get to reflect on that experience forever. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because you bring the positive energy with you into the present moment.
Right.
When you reflect.
Right. Yeah. I'd say the two most undervalued aspects of my life right now are scheduling things out to really anticipate those things coming forward. And then just deeper relationships. That would be the only other New Year's resolution. Last year I said I wanted to learn something really significant about myself, and oh my gosh, I learned a lot this year. I really did. But this year I want less acquaintances and more deep relationships. Again, that's a loose expectation, right? I'm not saying I want 7 deep relationships. I'm just saying, hey, I want less hi, how you doings, and more let's dig in and find out how you're really doing.
Not so much how you doing, but hi, how you feeling?
Yeah, how you feeling, and how can I actually help you? Not just be a high five on the way to work.
Yeah.
So
we're at 45 minutes, 46 minutes. Any parting thoughts here on priorities? Or
why don't you start? You always have me do the reflection. Why don't you wrap it up?
I mean, ultimately you're going to have to decide what those big rocks are. We can tell you it should be experiences or whatever, but ultimately it comes down to what do you value? Where are you going to put your energy? What do you need to say no to? And then how are you going to create an environment so that you can execute and continue to make positive direction, positive steps in making that priority a true priority? And then giving yourself grace. I think people, well, it's easy. Let's just use the gym, for example. They're like, I want to get in the gym more. Right? And gyms in January, bonkers.
Crushing it.
Right? Because everybody's like, I'm losing weight this year. And they're good for a week. And then they get sick. And they're out for a week. And they're done.
Right.
Giving yourself grace to not be perfect in the pursuit of whatever that is. Even if that's like, hey, I got to the gym one day this week. Hey, that was more than last week.
Right.
Okay? That was more than it was January of 2022.
Right.
We're winning.
Totally.
And then maybe next week it's 2 days.
Right.
And instead, maybe it's not. Maybe instead of one day at half an hour is one day at 45 minutes. But it's just giving yourself grace to make positive movement, positive momentum, permission to not be perfect.
Totally.
In that.
The one thing I share too that I'm not going to say I've been like a champion about, but it absolutely is true. If you want a wake-up call at least to know whether or not you're in a state of denial, right? Because again, going back to there's a lot of people that think they're doing it well that actually aren't doing it well, right? And you have to be faced with that reality. The best way to do it, look at your credit card statement. It will absolutely tell on you and where your priorities are right now. So not to say that you should feel badly about that, but just reflect on that. Reflect on where your priorities have been over the last few months. Your credit card statement's going to tell you exactly where it's been. And then you can make that shift from there. But knowing is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Love it.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Processing Purpose. We hope you grabbed a few gold nuggets to take one step forward in your journey of life and business. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel if you'd like to get more content to help you build and grow everything around you. Make today your best day. Today is day one.